I want to just give a brief introduction of the panelists on our next session, because I know that they will be introducing themselves. We have Tawanda Clark-Edgall, who is the actual, the moderator of this session. We also will have Dr. Marlene Carson, Audrey Morrissey, and Jackie Hoover, and Jasmine Rivera. So they will be joining us very shortly, as soon as I can get them on the screen. And we look forward to hearing everything that they have to, tell us about what we should be doing when it comes to protecting and uplifting our young girls and the girls that are in the life. So I believe we have everyone here. And let's see. Thank you all for your patience with the technology. We have Alicia. And yeah. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Tawanda. Good morning, Tawanda.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Tawanda Clark-Edgall. I'm the Chief Program Officer here at GwensGirls, and I'll be the moderator for today's session, Safe Spaces for Resilience, helping our girls do what they need to do to heal. And I want to start off by saying that the summit started off with a very great start. Centoya Brown-Long was amazing in the way that she shared her story. And she already spoke to resilience when she talked about her faith is a part of her healing. So it was great to hear her yesterday. The workshops were wonderful. And so we're going to forge ahead with more of that conversation about what we need to do to help our girls heal. I want to start off with this quote by Oprah Winfrey because I think that it's appropriate for this session. And it says, "What I know for sure is speaking your truth is the most powerful tool that we have." So I'm really happy that GwensGirls is giving women and young girls an opportunity to speak their truth. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to get started. I'd like to give a brief introduction of our panelists as they are coming on board. And we'll start the conversation right away. I want you to know that we will be checking the chat periodically to hear what you have to say. And we encourage you to put your questions in the chat, ask questions, and we will definitely work on getting them answered for you today. So I want to start with you, Jackie. You are the Deputy Director for Allegheny County Department of Human Services. You've had over 25 years in child welfare. And what people probably don't know is that you've been very instrumental here in Allegheny County in convening the work to supporting our young people around commercial sexual exploitation, really helping them to have safe spaces to heal. So can you speak to what or some of the efforts that you've been doing in Allegheny County to support our young people and really our young people that have been exploited as well?
Absolutely. So thanks, Tawanda, for having me, and to the Black Girls Equity Alliance for really giving the much needed light to this. So I started working on sexual exploitation of children in about 2013. And at that time, it was, I won't say it was nice, but it was an opportunity to have a name for what we knew had been happening for the 25 years that I was involved in child welfare. You know, I had been able to work with children on my caseload, and I knew in 1995 what was happening, but I didn't have a name for it. So it's now, finally an opportunity for us to be able to talk together as professionals and to know what this is, and that there's new legislation out that not only, labels this as child abuse, but the federal legislation that, provides opportunities for prosecution and for accountability of those traffickers. So, but just in Allegheny County, what we initially started out with was training, again, to help people identify and have conversations, with our young people. And, Tawanda, when you really helped with a lot of that work. We partnered in 2014 with Pittsburgh Action Against Rape to have a training for our staff and our providers, and then you came along and helped us put more of a youth voice to that. So I thank you for that, and we're still continuing to tweak our conversations and to help casework staff and others who work with children understand not only what to look for, but how to have the conversations. So we were able to put together an assessment and a screen for opportunities within our casework in Allegheny County about when we know youth are most at risk. And if we know the opportunities when we might be able to identify, then maybe we can start having conversations with young people earlier. We also like to start, once children start coming into placement, to have the conversations with them about what might be presented to them. I feel that there's still really so much more work to do, and I don't want to take away. I know Jasmine's going to talk a little bit more about the partnership with Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, but really we have taken from the 6 years that I've on this, not only ways to identify, but now we're really working on treatment paths. So we developed a drop-in center, therapeutic interventions. Now, I mean, we have one of the largest MDTs in Allegheny County, working on this, and such great partnership. I'm just thankful for everybody who comes together continually to give this topic the much needed conversation and partnership that we have.
Awesome. So Audrey, I'm going to move over to you, and I want our viewers to know that you are the Associate Director of My Life, My Choice, a program of the Justice Resource Institute. You've also served as the co-chair for Victim Services Committee of Massachusetts Task Force for Human Trafficking, and you're known as a local and national leader on exploitation. Can you please explain to us the continuum of survivor-led services aimed at preventing commercial sexual exploitation, and explain to us why it's important to have survivor-led programs?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Morrissey, and again, yes, I am the Associate Director of My Life, My Choice, and we've been around. We're located in Boston, Massachusetts, and we came about in 2002 due to the death of a young woman who was found murdered. And unfortunately, it was after her murder that it was revealed that this young person had a history of exploitation. She was living in a DCF-funded group home at the time, and no one had a clue. To this day, her murder has not been solved. What law enforcement know is that either a trafficker or a John murdered her. And like anything else in this country, something unfortunate or horrific has to happen before people will pay attention to certain issues. And so this one was no different. And Lisa Goldblatt Grace, who's the director and co-founder of My Life, My Choice, and another survivor who was a close friend of mine, was approached to come up with something to prevent young people, because prevention is very important as well, to prevent young people from being recruited into the commercial sex industry. And so what was developed at that time, which is our prevention solution model, which is a 10-week prevention curriculum, which is geared, it's gender specific. Trans girls, it would be appropriate for, but I have to say it's gender specific. A group that's been developed, and we started going into group homes, anywhere that serves young people, right? Places in the community, locked facilities. And so that prevention model right now is used in 32 states across the country. And I just want to really put out there, when we're looking at the prevention solution model piece, that anyone who works with adolescent youth can come and get trained, but you need two folks from each facility to get trained on how to run these groups, which ties into, Tawanda, what you said about the survivor-led piece. I will put out there, all of us aren't survivors, but you know, we're doing this work because we are interested in the well-being of what's happening to our children. I will say this though, the groups are more powerful when a survivor is co-leading the group. And because it brings the group what makes it so powerful in that prevention piece with survivors is that someone who has been there can share their experience. So when issues come up, like for myself with young people, I'm always saying, well, honey, especially if they're glorifying, I'm like, well, sweetie, when I did that, that's not what happened to me. Now, this is how it went down for me. Now tell me how that was different for you. You know what I mean? And so it just brings so much more. So I would encourage people that are listening, when you're looking at the prevention piece, survivors, find a survivor that can run these prevention groups with you. They're powerful, they work, the young people get the information that they need. And another thing about that group, what we've learned, any group that I've ran, if there were 10 to 12 girls, a couple girls that people didn't even know had been exploited or had the experience was revealed because there was a survivor in the room, and that young person felt safe enough, whether they shared it with the whole room, wrote it in their journal, or said, can I speak or talk to the survivor on the side, right? And so we were better able, it's another way to identify, it's prevention, but we've identified victims. So this work is definitely, has to be done. My Life, My Choice is survivor-led. Survivors are in all of the work. So that's like the prevention piece of the work that we do at My Life, My Choice. And I'll wait until we move on, and there's other pieces that we do. But that piece, that prevention piece is so important.
We want to thank you for sharing that. We have certainly seen evidence of that here in Allegheny County when we have individuals with lived experience support the work. It definitely makes a difference. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Carson, how are you this morning?
I'm doing excellent, Wanda. How are you doing?
I am great. I am absolutely great. So Dr. Carson, you're one of the foremost leaders in trafficking, author, coach, and CEO of The Switch, just to name a few of your credits, right? However, what I find most profound is the way you have coined the word survivor. Did you hear me when I said that? Survivor,
yes.
Right. So please speak to a survivor and what that is.
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to actually expand on that. But so a survivor is a person who not only survives, but goes on to develop resiliency, healthy coping skills, respect, self-respect, and hope for her own future. It's an individual who succeeds in regaining their dignity and their life after experiencing sexual exploitation and trafficking. So I've actually also coined a survivalist. So a survivalist is a survivor of sex trafficking, thriving in business or ministry, reviving others, dead dreams, visions, and purpose. And what I find that working with survivors and victims of sex trafficking, oftentimes, including myself, we lost our dreams. Our dreams died, our goals died, our hope died. In some kind of way, we have to regain that in order to have some kind of standard of life. So survivors, they overcome challenges with dignity and with style. That's what a survivor is.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Jasmine, are you there? Okay. So
I'm here.
Okay, great. Good. I didn't see you. All right. Jasmine, you and I, we play in the same playground. We've worked together. And as the director of prevention services, is that correct? That Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, victim response, at Pittsburgh Action Against Rape. I always say that you speak the language of our youth, which is amazing. You really have a way of being able to connect to our young people. Can you talk about some of the programming and some of the work that you've done with the girls at the Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, which is the acronym for PAR. We use acronyms so much that I want to make sure that everybody on the line understands what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've been doing a lot of is trying to build resiliency and, impact that self-esteem. As a lot of the panelists have said yesterday in the programs and presentations that we had, where they had low self-esteem, and a trafficker was able to kind of pinpoint where they were lacking, right? So that they were better able to groom our youth. So we've been focusing on going into like Auberly, Schumann, Jada House, and different facilities, and running these just groups that help build the resilience, help with the skill building, help people just acknowledge what they're good at so that we can try to invest in our youth. So those are some of the things that we've been doing with youth. I know we work a lot with Jackie Hoover. She's been amazing. We have our drop-in center where we have like a small computer lab, we have emergency meals, we have hygiene products, and just different services to help anyone that is either in the life or trying to get out of the life. We understand that, and I think all of us need to understand that when you have someone that may be in the life, it's not going to be a one-time thing where it's like, okay, I reached out and I got help and now I'm done. It may be a revolving door, and you have to meet people where they are and understand that that's okay. And the fact that they reached out to you, that is a step, like that is a win. So being able to acknowledge what the wins are and not utilize your own measure to say, oh, well, it's not working because this person didn't do this. No, the person made a phone call, or they stopped by, or they took a pamphlet. Like, the wins are not what we want to measure by our measuring rod, but realizing that one step in the direction of getting help is a win.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Jasmine, there is a question in the chat for you. People are asking where the drop-in centers are.
Oh, we don't disclose the location for drop-in centers. However, all you have to do, you can call, we have a 24-hour hotline. We understand that things do not happen between 8 and 5, right? So 24 hours, you guys can give us a call. You can stop in our main office. It's 81 South on 19th, right on Carson Street. And just by doing that, we will get you connected with everything and anything that we have to offer. And if we don't have it to offer, trust me, we will reach out. We have fabulous people like GwensGirls and all the different programs out there. So if we can't do it, we'll find someone who can.
Thank you. Thank you. Jackie, I want to go back to you. I want to ask you, can you speak to some of the prevention programs that we have in Allegheny County?
Right. So I would say we're about to have more, right? I do think that one of the I think that the main examples that we do not do well on is around prevention. So if I were really to focus on prevention, I would, really be targeting our young people who are coming into the child welfare system, and really making sure that, permanency is happening more quickly for them. That's sort of one step that we've taken on our end, because if our young people have identified permanent connections and they feel that healthy and stable and that the system is supporting them rather than, continuing to keep them down, then, they might not look or be as vulnerable to those predators, if you will, who we like to say can smell them out, before we can. So, really what I would, ask everybody to do is if you're really thinking about prevention, you have to start before the conversation even gets to that point. So having, healthy conversations about sex and, healthy growing, and really being open and honest about conversations that, sexual health is not anything to be ashamed about, and that, women and girls should be proud and, have the proper self-esteem around their bodies. One of, the things that I'm probably most proud of, not most proud of, but that I, like to promote in Allegheny County, is that we do have a self-esteem program called KEEP. And then that has led to another program, which we like to call, Undercover, where we have people go out to our facilities, and they meet with, young men and women, and they provide, undergarments to promote that positive self-esteem, that your body isn't something to be ashamed of, but also having the conversation that your body is yours until you say that it isn't, and really having that being an open and honest discussion. I think that, until we do that, sex is not a little dirty secret, because if we don't talk about it with our young people, it will continue to be that dirty secret that's swept under the rug and that people are ashamed to talk about. So I would say on prevention efforts, that's probably what we could all do better with. But, we've also taken to giving some tip sheets. We had our youth support partner unit work with some youth and develop tip sheets around, since young people are spending more and more time online, which is where, people probably will find them quicker, how to be, aware of what a contact might look like over Snapchat, over some of the other social media platforms. And then we've been also giving those tips to teachers and to parents, so that, everybody should be informed of, these are the social media platforms. These are some that, are considered safe. But, really as a caregiver, you should be aware of all platforms that, your child is on. And then, that all children who are on these platforms, they should also be aware of, these are the people that might approach you. And these are things that you can do to make sure that you're having a conversation with who you think you have, and how to protect yourself.
And so, Jackie, for people who don't know, can you talk a little bit about who the youth support partners are? What that does?
Yeah, I would love to. So youth support partners, originally there was probably about one in around 2001, 2003, through a system of care grant that Allegheny County had gotten, to really have youth voice sort of threaded throughout the behavioral health system. And then in around 2007, the effort grew into a broader scope of program offices, from juvenile justice to child welfare, education, and behavioral health. So we probably have about 42, or we're always looking for more. And these are youth with lived experience in any of the systems that I just raised, who can partner with the system and the youth to make sure that youth are comfortable and confident in having their voice threaded in plans that are made, and that their needs are not only being met, but their needs are identified as theirs. And youth support partners, are able to share their experience when necessary, but, really are much younger. They don't look like me coming out to talk to somebody who, is 15 and really struggling through what is normal for 15-year-olds to struggle with. So, they have been a great, thing in Allegheny County. And it's exactly like what Audrey says. When people with lived experience lead efforts, it not only feels more empowering, but it's also, more holistic, and it gives just so much more value to all the programming. If folks aren't doing that or aren't connected, we offer that opportunity to do it. And really, when we speak nationally, that's one of the things we say: if you want to steal something, this is one thing you should steal.
Awesome. And so that leads us to Audrey again. I want you to talk about, if you would, share some of those promising practices that you have had the opportunity to work through with My Life, My Choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we find is our mentoring program. And our mentoring program is, I founded that in 2004. And so our mentoring program is where we pair adult women survivors with adolescent youth. And I do want to say this, and I want to be clear about this. We have to be mindful of re-exploitation. right? Because in this movement, we can re-exploit people. So just to give an idea on the hiring process of a mentor, our mentors have to be out of the life at least 5 years. If they have substance abuse, if that comes up, because we find that's helpful too. Recovering addicts are very helpful in the movement as well when working with, right? Because a lot of the youth, they do have substance abuse issues, and they have to have been clean for 5 years. The other thing that we want, we ask in the interviews is, what are you doing for your own self-care? Because we've said this over and over again. Jasmine, you said it, it's not a one-stop deal. Even when you get out, it's not a one, right? I'm a survivor. It's an ongoing process. And so I want to know what these women are doing, continuing on with their recovery process. And that could be, for some, it could be church. For me, if you ask me that question, I'll say I belong to a 12-step program, right? That's my thing that I do for self-care, because I can be open in that group, right? In women's meetings, right? And I'm not alone in that, about my past, right? So that's my wheel and deal, and get some suggestions, please, if I get overwhelmed. The other thing I want to say about that is that we also, at My Life, My Choice, so that our youth are being served appropriately, so no one can say, oh, I'm working, I don't have time to go to therapy. Yes, you do. We'll give you an hour, 1 hour a week paid, whether you're stopping at whatever it is that you do, whether it's a therapy session, I'm going to stop by my church and see my pastor for an hour, whether for me it's I can do an NA meeting real quick on work time. So we also provide that support, and I share that part because in order for us to serve our kids the way that they should be served, we have to make sure that the survivors, and you did a breakdown, Marlene, of what that person should look like. We don't want to send people out who are struggling, still traumatized, right? To see our kids to get re-traumatized. We would never send children to talk to other children who've been in the life, because that's very, very exploitive. And our young people haven't even gotten the help that they needed yet. So we don't use them to support other youth, right? We'll use them in, in our leadership, develop pamphlets for parents or other, their voices get out there in that way. But we never use adolescent kids to say, hey, that happened to me too. Let's sit down and talk, because that's definitely re-exploiting them. And so, and through mentors, we also have, the mentors have case managers. So meaning if a mentor, right, has a large caseload, they're busy seeing the kids, finding out what needs need to be met. A lot of times they can't run around and meet the needs because they have to see all their kids, right? And so we have case managers who will step in to help young people, whether it's they need to get in a program, they're homeless, or when they get older, they need education. They'll help them do college applications. And so our mentoring program, which is all survivors for mentors, the case managers are not survivors, and that's fine, but their go-to person. And that has been working. We've walked a lot of young people through a lot of stuff. And Jasmine, like you said, sometimes they get it and they never usually get it the first time. But to have a survivor in place, whether they're doing good, not doing so good, to know that they have a survivor in their corner. They will call us when they're not even doing good. They'll call us when they're on the run from DCF, and DCF don't have a clue where they are. Now, I'm not saying they always tell us where they are, but at least they will call and check in, and we can let the worker know we heard from her. She's all right. And we do try and set them up. Girl, meet me for lunch at McDonald's, right? If they're, minor, you know what I'm saying? To get them and try and have our visit and then be honest and then have the necessary people come in. But they're usually a little too smart for that, but we've done it in the past. So the mentoring people who've been in this life need people, adult women who have recovered and who are reasonably happy, right? Because listen, anything can happen.
Right.
But, right? And so I need to carry a message of hope in my work. And the young people, a lot of them, I want to work for my life, my choice, right? Because of the support. And so not because I founded it, but it is our most powerful tool that My Life, My Choice has, is pairing young people with adult women who have survived this horrific life.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And Audrey, you actually have a question from the chat. One of our judges is asking, do you work with judges on how to not re-traumatize girls in the court proceedings? Do you have any advice for judges? And I guess I could go out to you, and any of the panelists could certainly share in that.
Yes.
So I want to open that up, but I'll start with you, Audrey.
Oh my God. You know something? That is an excellent question. And a light bulb just went off in my head about the next thing to do. Now, the problem with judges is to get them together to do something like that is nearly impossible.
This is the head of the judges, and she'll be able to do it. So.
Yeah. And so, first of all, having some compassion. We have a great juvenile judge here who really works well with the young people. And what she does is, instead of, she's not, in Massachusetts, we don't charge or arrest children with prostitution anyway, right? So kids aren't going before a judge in that way. But if you know that that's their history, it's really about, listen, I don't know what you've gone through, that, like, I have to honestly say that, but let me know what it is that you need. You can say to them, because I'm a judge and I can make stuff happen that other people can't. What do you need? You know what I mean? And they love when you're honest. They love when you're not trying to tell them what to do and you should do that. That is traumatizing. Give them a voice. Ask them what they need in their treatment. Help them, you know what I mean? Be an ally in their treatment plan, in their referral plan, because judges do have the power. When other people say no, a judge will get them in, whether it's substance abuse treatment, whether it's housing, whatever it is, you have the power to do it. So talk to them like they're, particularly juveniles, give them a say, ask them how you can help and what it is that they need. And I know sometimes some decisions you do have to make, but it doesn't feel traumatizing because what exploiters never want to hear what they have to say. So if you come off controlling, that's what they're used to. You're going to re-traumatize them. Be gentle. Ask them what they need and how you can help them get what they need as far as services go.
Thank you. Dr. Carson, did you have anything you wanted to say, or any of the other panelists?
I do, and not because I have to echo what Audrey said, not because I helped start it, but in Franklin County, we started something called Catch Court. Catch Court, it stands for Changing Actions to Change Habits. And so it's an adult court, but we did a spinoff recently called the Empowerment Court, and it is for juveniles. And so they, like Audrey said, they come up with their own way of, what do you need? How can we help you? They are a part of the plan. And I think judges and all law enforcement, they really do need to have not only trauma-informed care training, but trauma-informed responses. They need to learn how to respond with a trauma-informed lens.
All right, thank you. And I want to thank you for the question in the chat as well. All right. This is moving along nicely. So you know what, Dr. Carson, why don't we we're with you. Why don't we throw the next question out to you? Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the switch? And you're always so great at coming up with names. So I'll have something great for us.
So Audrey's gonna love this, but everybody's gonna understand this. The switch actually came about because exploitation or prostitution happens on the track. And what we're saying is time to switch tracks. It's time to switch perspective. It's time to switch law enforcement from looking at victims as criminals and see them as victims. It's just time to make a switch. It's time to make a change. And so the Switch Anti-Trafficking Network, we work with different segments of our population to get them to have a new perspective of exploited people. That's where the switch came from.
Awesome. I think that's great. All right, Jasmine, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the push-pull techniques that you are seeing here in Allegheny County with the girls that you've been working with?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times I like to call them grooming behaviors, right? Because it goes hand in hand. So with the push-pull tactics, you have to remember, and a lot of the other panelists said this yesterday, but something that you're lacking, right? Like whether it's self-esteem, whether it's I don't belong, whether it's poverty, violence in your community, like something that is weighing on you, like that's gonna be something that's gonna make it easier for you to be identified as someone who can be pulled into the lifestyle. So sometimes the push tactics can come from home, they can come from school, they can come from the neighborhood. You'll also get that with the trafficker. It's like, you know, I'm gonna give you this, but I'm not gonna give you too much because I don't want you to get too comfortable. So I'm gonna give you this, I'm gonna make it, it's nice, it's good, it's that honeymoon stage, and then I'm gonna pull it back and I'm gonna keep you wanting more. So there's like few ways to look at it, you know, even if you look it up, you can look, push-pull tactics are done even with retail, right? Like what the consumer wants and what you can give them. And so this tactic has been utilized in so many different areas, but when it comes to this population, we have to remember that it doesn't have to be push-pull only from the trafficker. It can be a push-pull combination from an environment, from a neighborhood, from a home, from abuse that's already happening. You know, so the push can be external, or it can be the tactic that the trafficker himself or herself are doing. And we do see that a lot. And like I said, and someone else here said it too, like I think it was Jackie, that secrecy, right? Like, and that shame. So if I can get you to do something that you're gonna be shameful for and use that against you later, like, oh, well, you know, you did this, so why wouldn't you do that? Or how would your family think of you if they knew you did this? Online, we see that a lot, especially with all the social medias, being able to post some compromising pictures, we'll say, or videos. So we definitely see the push-pull tactics a lot. And I always want people to take out of that is that it can be a combination. It doesn't have to be just the trafficker doing the pushing and the pulling, although we do see that. But a lot of times we have to look what's going on in that child's environment, what's going on at home, what's going on at school. Because sometimes the push tactic, pushing them into the life, is not always just what the trafficker is doing. It's what they're going through that makes it easier for them to be pulled into that lifestyle.
So I want to throw this out to everyone. How do we as a community of educators, social service professionals, parents, how do we wrap that love and support around our young people so that they don't feel that need to be pulled into this life? Any suggestions that you can throw out?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. We'll start with you, and then Dr. Carson, we'll go to you.
Sure.
I think a lot of times we have to pay attention, right? I think sometimes what we don't realize that sometimes parents are in survival mode for whatever the reason, whether it's work, whether there's neighborhood. So sometimes you're in survival mode yourself. So you can't really see when your child is struggling with something because you're struggling. So sometimes it's paying that attention. And like I said, panelists said it yesterday, investing in your children, right? And if you can't do it, because sometimes, like I said, you're in survival mode. You know, we've had so many, you know, I hate to say generational curses, but so many things that have been passed on to us genetically with just the struggle that a lot of times you are in survival mode. So I say, look for resources, right? I say GwensGirls again, like so many wonderful programs that if you can't do it because you're in survival mode, then find the support, not only for yourself, but for your child. And it's so taboo in so many communities when you're looking for support, whether it's mental health, but that's also a big one that we struggle with because people are not looking for that support. So kind of find the support in your neighborhood, whether it's your church, whether it's a program, whether it's a 24-hour hotline. But once you start to find support, then you can start to pass that down to your child and to your community, right? It's like, if I see someone doing it and they're doing okay, then I'm more likely to try it. We utilize a lot with a lot of the youth that we work with. We will give them information and we'll say, hey, in case you have a friend that's going through something, right? Because sometimes they don't, like, it's not happening to me, it's not me. So people will seek help for other people. So if you start to seek help for yourself as a parent or as a community, just talking about these things, that it will be easier for someone else to follow. So that would be my recommendation on that.
Great, great. Okay, Dr. Carson, did you want to speak to that? And then I have a question from the chat that I'll ask in just a second, but go ahead, Dr. Carson.
I just have to thank you, Jasmine, for that answer. I think about, I had 4 children before I was 21 years old. Taken at 15, had 4 kids before I was 21. And me and my children are still having the conversations of the trauma they experience because of trafficking. And I'm telling you, some things I didn't realize, some things they didn't realize. I was totally in survival mode. But the other thing I think parents can and should do is communicate. I cannot stress that enough. And so, because one thing about it is, like, if you're not communicating with your children, somebody will. They're going to be connected. They're going to build their own community. And so if it's not you, and if it's not those that are loving, trusting, it's going to keep them safe, they're going to build a community, because we all need it. And so I say, build that community for your children and be involved in your child's life in that community.
Right. I think that's great. And I do want to go back to Jasmine. If, some of our parents, they are in survival mode. So being able to connect your child to the resources if you're not able to do it. I have a panelist that's asking, what are some of the signs to look for, I guess, in the event that you're a young person, your child is being pulled into the life? What do parents need to be aware of? I think I've talked to community people who didn't think this was happening in their backyard. This was happening in Brazil. But this is in our neighborhoods here. So what are the signs?
I have tons. We won't have time for all of them. We call them red flags.
All right.
Right? Child has a history of being missing from care, running away, including being out of state, has visible signs of abuse, cigarette burns, marks on body, but might not be on face, right? Because we want to protect the face, because we still have to sell the victims. Behaviors that are consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder, hypervigilance, fear, right? Anxiety. Mm-hmm. And of course, attire. And a lot of times our young people, they don't have to be in the life to wear certain stuff. But I always say this: if you see a young person who wore jeans and sneakers, sweatsuits and hoodies, and then all of a sudden they have weaves, nails, and that sort of thing, that is a red flag, like a whole, right? Expensive items, clothing, jewelry that they can't afford, high-end cell phones, tattoos, dollar signs, barcodes, right? Someone's male name, street name tattooed on them. Uses language from the life, frequently truant from school, involved with a male or anyone or a female much older than they are, or gang involved, right? And the young ladies anyway will brag about that. Ask them, what are your responsibilities in the gang? Why they choose you? Because we know all gang members got to contribute something. What is it that they contribute? You know what I mean? Has a history of multiple pregnancies or STD infections. And if there's a trans youth, has access to hormone injections, new friends, older teens or adults, and is disconnected from family or caregivers. Because be mindful, a exploiter wants to separate them from anyone who cares about them. So those are some of the red flags of a young person as being exploited.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to that? Although I think you've covered quite a bit. I don't know if there's anything left. Okay. So it looks like you covered everything. What about internet safety? I was reading an article that said that 61% of parents reported that there was an increase in internet usage, but they weren't monitoring their children on the internet as much. And so what I think about is exploiters using, our children and saying, I have these pictures of you. If you don't do what I say, then I'm going to post these pictures. Can anybody speak to that and speak to monitoring of internet usage?
So there are exploiters that use the pictures and the threat and the exposure of those pictures. But another thing I think we need to look at is actually kind of twofold. Exploiters, or just people who want to perpetrate on your kids, period, they can be anybody that they pretend to be on the other side of this camera. You don't know, you know what I'm saying? They creating these fake profiles. You don't know who you're talking to. And it's really interesting to me how we disserve.
Okay, I'm not sure where Dr. Carson went. She was on a roll though. Anybody? Yeah. Are you there, Dr. Carson?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure where she went, but if somebody wants to pick up and maybe when she comes back, we can go back to that.
I am certainly no Dr. Carson, but, as a parent of two teenage girls, she's exactly right. You have to be able to it's twofold. As a parent, you have to be able to monitor, but you also have to be able to prepare your children that they could be, what is the term, catfished, that, it might not be, that 14-year-old boy who's asking you for this. So not only prepare them for that, but also have, again, like those healthy conversations and prepare your children before they're asked. So, they have to know that, the amount of nudes that people send to each other online is overwhelming. I think that, people would be extremely overwhelmed if they understood how frequently common it is, especially for children underage, and to prepare your children for comebacks. So this is going to be asked of you either by a male or a female, and how will you prepare yourself for when this happens to you? And so I think it's both of those situations. It's not thinking that it's not going to happen. It is going to happen, whether they're in a healthy relationship or an unhealthy relationship. So, you have to be able to give them the esteem and the knowledge of how they're going to respond for when it will happen to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just say that it does happen. They have these pictures and they put them on the internet, or they're threatening to put them on the internet. What do we tell our young people? Jasmine?
Well, Tuan, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit before I answer that with what Jackie said. I worked with sex offenders for about 14 years, right? So a lot of times, what we forget is that the same techniques that they utilize in person in terms of exploiting, someone who may seem that they have low self-esteem or have certain issues, a lot of sex offenders on the internet will cast a very wide net, right? I might send 100 messages to 100 different girls to say, hey, beautiful, just to see which one responds to me. And that one that responds to me is like, okay, there's a reason you responded to me. You have no idea who I am, right? So I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit to say, a lot of times when we have these conversations as parents, we go right into if someone asks you for pictures, like don't do that, and realizing that it starts very light, right? Very innocent. Hi, beautiful. Okay, now I got you. Okay, let's have conversation. So when people are being asked for these pictures, at that point, it's not what we've explained to the children. It's not like that abrupt, send me some pictures. It's that, well, this is my friend, or this is my boyfriend, or this is my girlfriend, right? So just kind of remembering that, casting that wide net, and understanding that whoever responds, you just gave me an insight that you're lacking something. So now I'm going to get to know you so that I can exploit that. And your second question, Tawanda, I'm sorry, I just wanted to elaborate on that.
Okay, I think that was great. I see Dr. Carson has come back, so I'm going to let her fill in. I think that, you gave great information, and thank you for sharing that. Dr. Carson, do you want to pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I don't even know where I left off, but I do want to say that there is a tool that we all can use, those of us who have small or youth. It's called M-Spy. So M-Spy is something that you can download on your phone, and it actually download on your phone, download on their phone, and it tracks every single thing, every text, every post, every Instagram, every TikTok. It monitors everything, and it is a membership. It's not mine, so I'm not, I don't get no benefit out of it. It's just a good resource for parents to have for their children. We have actually helped so many parents who had that on their kids' phones because their kids were going left to center, and that's the only way we were able to find their children, was because of M-Spy.
Thank you for sharing that. That is really important. I know parents definitely want to have that information. If my children were young, I would definitely want that. I do have a question from the chat though that I want to make sure that I address, and it is how can systems do a better job at supporting our female youth assigned male at birth?
Good question.
How can systems do a better job at supporting our female youth that are in the life that are assigned male at birth?
Well, again,
okay, go on. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's just asking. I think we could start by asking. Everybody has a sexual orientation or a gender identity expression. As Tawanda said, we love our acronym, so we refer to it as SO. And I think if we start talking early when we're meeting young people where they're at, they know what to name that. Somebody's asking them, maybe they'll start thinking about, what's real and present in them. And then, we can start identifying the right level of services.
Great. Audrey, were you going to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, we support them as we support, because we serve boys and trans youth in our organization. We support them the same way we support our young women. It's no different. Like having a mentor and someone in your life who respects who you are, who you say you are, and then walk you through it, right? Get those services out there. So we don't separate the two. One thing that I will add is that we did a focus group before we started working with boys and trans youth, with boys and trans youth, right? And different populations. And one of the things that the parents said and the youth said is that they would prefer their mentors to be female, because all of their abuse and most of their abuse that they endured happened at the hands of males. So just being mindful of that, who you are assigning to support that youth.
That's great information. Thank you. Dr.
Yeah, that's real good. Yeah, the other thing I would say is just meet them where they are. I just have to echo the same thing Audrey said. Meet them where they are and walk them through a process. Doesn't matter. All that other stuff just doesn't matter. They are human beings. We all are. We're victims. Meet people where they are and help them to get where they want to go.
Okay.
And get our own prejudices and biases and all that out the door.
Okay. I want to add too, when I think of, we were all one community in the life. So survivors are the best people to support them, because we didn't judge them even when we were in the life. Like some of them looked out for me. You know what I'm saying? Like if I've had and we didn't use the term trans and all that, the terms we have today. But I remember being in the alley and a trick, you know what I'm saying? Went off, and that trans woman, as we call it today, knocked him out cold, heard me screaming in the alley. You understand what I'm saying? And so we were a family and looked out for each other. So with that population or anyone struggling with that identity, a survivor is their best support, because it's not different for us. We were all, when I look back, I'm we were all broken. So we came together. So we're not in awe. Oh my God, what's going on? Oh, that's different from me. We already know about that. We were just family. We were just family.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. The chat wants us to go back to speak a little bit more about youth sending nudes to each other. They want to know, isn't that considered child pornography? I know I worry about teenagers getting in trouble for sending nudes, especially if I have younger siblings. So they want us to speak a little bit more about that. Jackie, I don't know if you want to touch on that. But the question is around whether or not this is considered pornography. And I think they're asking about what the repercussions are if young people are sending it. So does anybody have information, want to touch on that? I know with Jackie.
Yep, so it is considered
Okay,
child pornography. And, you know,
right. I think, Jackie, you broke up a
so
little.
my children definitely, my children, unfortunately, oh, sorry. I'll let Dr. Carson answer.
Okay. Dr. Carson, were you going to answer that?
Audrey was actually going to answer that. I'll piggyback off of Audrey.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Audrey, go ahead.
Thank you. But it is child pornography. And just to give an example, when you get law enforcement, human trafficking is in the same building that I work in. So just to give an example, I had a picture that I seen a kid, right? So I said to the law enforcement person, I'll send it to you. They're like, nope. Bring me the
Right.
phone. Because even if I send it to law enforcement, I've just distributed child pornography, right? So for those
Thank
of
you
you
for sharing that.
I want you guys to know that too. Like, take the phone, show if you have it in your phone, and again, Jasmine, you were really on point, and piggybacking off what you said. We have to educate our children more around, right? We still, believe it or not, we still have to tell them, don't send nudes. But like you said, also, we have to start saying to our kids, and don't send nudes to your boyfriend. You can have conversations like, you know what, sweetie, you're 15 or 16. I know that's your boo, you're in love, and some more stuff. But the reality is, by the time you're 21, he probably won't be your boo, and your boo will still have those photos. You know what I'm saying? And it's just having those honest conversations. And I'll tell you all, even if we have those conversations, kids still do that. It comes from a place for some of them, low self-esteem, low self-worth. That's right? And a culture of there's just no shame. Like things we would be ashamed of and ashamed to do when we were younger. It's in reality no thing for our young people. So we just have to keep supporting them and find out, get to know that young person, understand where that's coming from, because each kid I might have to deal with differently, right? I might have kids struggling with some severe mental health or some other diagnosis that I might have to find someone, a clinician or someone else might have to address it with them differently than I would address it with another young person. So being mindful that the appropriate people, but I think it's true just to, and we don't, someone put in the chat, shaming them. We do not shame them. No. It's just about, right? And for me, I'll say things like, oh my God, thank God. And, and listen, if I keep it honest, with young people, I can share my experience of like, thank God it wasn't the internet, but there's some things on film of me, you know what I'm saying, that I just cannot find. And for someone to have that, honey, can you imagine somebody having your stuff and you can't, like, it's about, Jackie, like you said, our bodies and their worth. We just have to continue. It's about esteem building. Once we build esteem, right, the young people get it, right? Because most people don't do that. Most people do that, especially youth, from low self-esteem. Talk, educate, talk, educate, over and over and over and over and over again. And that's one where sometimes in our groups, because we'll cover that, where other young people will share their experience. I did that in my picture, you know, I was black male. Sometimes that kind of thing they might have to hear from other young people, like the outcome of what happens. And that kind of information, young people usually volunteer to deliver to when they hear another young person share that. So.
Right. So what do we say to parents? How do we, encourage, support, educate parents who have a child that has been in a life and now maybe that child is no longer in a life and is seeking refuge and home again? How do we talk to parents in reference to helping them support and nurture that relationship with their child?
I would like to chime in on that. So when I came out to life, one of the hardest things that happened to me was coming back and looking at my parents, because I had a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. Even though I was kidnapped, it was still, all of that was part of my life, the guilt, shame, the condemnation. And my mother and my father couldn't look at me. And my mother carried so much shame as if it was their fault. And so I understand from a parent's perspective, you want to protect your child and you feel like you didn't do a good job at that. And you feel like all these gaps were in your own parenting as if it was your fault. And then I also grew up in the culture of what goes on in the house does what? It stays in the house. Right. And so there was no counseling. There was no, you go to church and you can talk to the pastor about it, but they dealing with their own trauma too, for real. But so the one thing that I would say to parents is reach out to your support groups in your area. We here at The Switch, we do have a support group for parents of traffic victims. And this is a shameless pull from a book. I've actually written a book called 12 Steps to Transform the Exploited Soul. And we wrote one for parents to walk parents through that process, because it is hard. I get it. I lived on the side as a victim. So I know what my parents went through. It was hard. That communication breakdown. I left a virgin girl, raised in the church, came back pregnant. So that right there just shattered my daddy. It just shattered our whole entire family, to be honest. And so there are some things that I would recommend for as a parent. The first thing is, don't blame yourself. Now, especially if you're doing all you can, parents do all they can to support your children, provide for your children, sometimes too much, to be quite honest. We work in 2 and 3 jobs to make sure these kids have what they need. They have the things that we didn't have. And the one thing that we are not giving them is character. We're not giving them some things that we do have that don't cost any money. And I won't get on a tangent because I can. And but give your kids the things that don't cost, that really make a difference in their character, in their mindset. Teach your kids how to build their own self-esteem, and so they don't have to look for it from anybody else. Like I said, I can go on a tangent, so I'm gonna be quiet right here, but there are things for parents.
All right, great. Jasmine?
I want to echo what Dr. Carson said in terms of, we offer like significant other counseling, right? And significant other doesn't mean it has to be a spouse, it could be a parent, but you have to deal with your shame and your trauma and your guilt, right? Because if not, you're going to put that on your child, on the victim. They're already I've seen so many parents and I'm just like, okay, they're dealing with their own stuff. They can't deal with yours right now too. So it's like, you have to take accountability and understand that this was difficult for you. So maybe you need to go to counseling with your child, or go to support groups, because you're also in a unique situation, and understanding just trauma responses. Like this, your child may come back and you remember a certain person, and that's not the same person that came back. So you have to understand that the responses of trauma vary, and the trauma response that child presents at home may be a completely different person, someone you don't know. So you're gonna have to get to know this person, right? You're gonna have to get to know your daughter or your son is still in there, but you're gonna have to get to know this new version of them.
Wow, thank you for
that.
Can I say one more thing to that before we move on? Audrey, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just want to say too, the parents have to get whatever they need to get and be willing to get it. Because my mother was a bully. I come from them old school Southern people, Marlon. Listen, My mother was the first bully I ever met. My mother scared the crap out of me. And so, no, like, and to go home to some of her ways, sometimes it was easier to be on the street, man. I felt like I didn't get that kind of treat. You know what I'm saying? In the, like, that kind of abuse in the street and intimidation. And so we have to, who are the parents, man, that are supporting this kid? Did they do their work? Are they in denial about their way of parenting? Because some kids go back to a home that re-traumatizes them, man. In my mother's house, many a times, I always had a roof over my head and a place to go. My mother, I had my own room. I come from a middle-class Black family. They owned a big 3-family home, worked hard, and some more stuff. So I didn't have to be in the street. You know what I'm saying? But that intimidation and how my mother was, sometimes the street was a relief from her. So I just want to put that out there too.
And I think that's an interesting point that you're making, Audrey, because even though the basic needs are met, and that's why this transcends against so many socioeconomic backgrounds, right? Yeah. And we're talking about Black girls today, but we know that this just is not specific to Black girls. No. But we're talking about, you know, this has nothing to do about basic needs being met. That might be a part of it, right? But that need for belonging and emotional support is important. So that's where that push into the life comes from, because I didn't get what I needed at home emotionally. So I think you say something that's so powerful when you say that it was almost like the streets or the refuge were the refuge. And we want to make sure that the streets are not the refuge for our young people, that we're doing what we need to do for them. So I'm going to go back and I want to talk a little bit more about the programming and the resources. I think you spoke to, you know, how we support families, how we support community, what are things that educators can do. But I just want to reiterate the programs that are available so that people know that we do have a place that we can reach out to and we can ask for help so that we can support our young people. Jackie, I'm going to ask you, you talked a little bit about the multidisciplinary team in Allegheny County. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more so people know the level of work that's being done in Allegheny County around commercial sexual exploitation?
Yep, absolutely. We were supposed to have a meeting yesterday, and we moved it to next Thursday because we didn't want anybody to miss much of this summit. But we have a group that's been meeting for, you know, probably almost 2 years. And, you know, it not only consists of myself as the child welfare director, but, and, you know, Tawanda is there from the Black Girls Equity Alliance and GwensGirls, and Jasmine's always there along with others from Pittsburgh Action Against Rape. We also have individuals from law enforcement, the FBI. We have our private investigators. We have juvenile justice. We have survivors. We have youth support partners. We have, you know, a really huge multidisciplinary team, and we come together either monthly or every other month to not only, you know, share, but also move forward. We've also been, you know, taking great pains to not only identify, you know, how we work together, but also to identify where we could work better together. So we do case reviews, and we look at, you know, where did we miss or where did we do good, and try to have, you know, more conversation about, you know, really expanding on those things. And what I will say we need to do much better at is having more resources. So besides, you know, the Project Traffic Stop at Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, we need to do better around having, you know, particular therapeutic resources that, you know, can be offered to our children. We currently in Allegheny County, we have a referral for proposal out for a residential program using an evidence-based intervention called CHANCE, where, you know, individuals who we believe are in the life or being trafficked or sexually exploited can be placed, and they can work on what one intervention. What I see, and I have to speak for myself, that I am most guilty of, is that sometimes when we know our young people are being trafficked, we tend to feel more comfortable sending them away. And I always say it's like going to a podiatrist when you have a migraine. That some of these placements really are not getting at the core or the root of what has happened, and it's not their fault. It is ours for not having the right resources. But I would be interested in hearing from other panelists is so when that is an opportunity, I know I work with staff all the time to say this is really hard for us as helping professionals and as people identified for our role as keeping children safe. So it's hard for us to keep having the connection and knowing that, our people are going to walk away and come back. But as long as we keep our door open and these people, these children know that they can come back at any time, it will become more often and more frequent. And then that's where we will be able to, really focus on engagement and earn that trust and then make an opportunity for a change. But, sometimes I feel that when we make a placement and we put, children in the middle of, some of our placements are really far away, and they're sequestered from their family, from school, and from friends, and from really the life and community that they know. I struggle with that because I feel that I'm not any different than the trafficker who is keeping them isolated regardless.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Did anyone from the panel want to speak to that? Offer suggestions?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So how do we help professionals work through? So I will often get a call. A young person has been identified as trafficked, and can you lock them up? And I always say, no, I cannot lock them up for their own safety. I know that makes you and maybe me feel better. Maybe we can sleep at night, but that's just another form of victimization.
I'm seeing from
Well,
the chat.
well, Jackie, I think you kind of said it all, right? So again, after all that you shared, one of the things, again, going back to the youth, asking the youth, do you feel safer away, or do you feel safer in a program closer to home? That's information I would ask the young person, because they're honest about that. And some of them will pick near home, and then because they don't understand, they're still in the battle. But some of them will say, I've had kids, listen, in Massachusetts, I've had kids tell DCF when they were in a program and then they were going to step down. I've heard kids tell their workers, don't send me to that independent living program in where I grew up. And they send them there anyway, and it hits the fan. So again, I think when we're educating providers, because a lot of times we can't pick and choose, but ask that young person where they feel the safest, right? Closer to family, away, so that they have a voice in that too. And when you ask the question, make sure you have a placement in both places, right? Because you can't ask the question and you don't have a program there, right? But when you do have that, you can at least ask the question, ask the young person. And then if it doesn't work, then if they come back, you can say, why don't we try going a little further away? We tried that and the results didn't change. Can we just try, see if it gets better if you're away from the people, places, and things?
There's a question. Thank you so much, Audrey, for sharing that, and for Jackie for sharing the information. And we're continually working to improve our process. So thank you. There's a question from the chat that I think is important, and it says, "What do you see as the role of men in this work? How can the men who work with youth support the women who often end up having to take additional work because they are women?" So can you speak to what you see as the role of men in this work?
I I think men definitely has a role in the work. I think, well, I know that we need men of character and integrity to hold other men accountable, to speak to the buying, to challenge your boys to respect women and girls. And men definitely have a significant role in that. I don't know at what point in this movement that it became a women's issue, when in fact, we don't have an issue if it wasn't for men. And so the fact of the matter is we need men to step up to the plate. We need just men to step up to the plate. We need men's voices to say, not on my watch. We're going to protect our children. We're going to protect our women. We're going to protect our girls. And so as a man, we look to you for security. We look to you for providing for that family. And so if we have exploiters coming in, taking our children, where are you? You're missing. You're MIA. Girl, don't get me started there. I'm gonna be quiet. Go ahead.
Listen, and I'm gonna add, and we also need white men to educate other white men around it's not okay to buy people. It is not okay for you to use your white privilege to buy people, particularly our brown and black girls and women. We have been through enough. And for you to use your damn privilege to buy people who are already oppressed, that's a problem. And unfortunately, it is going to take white men to educate other white men. We can't educate them. So when we look at the role of men, that is a big one around the demand. We need white men to educate other white men around the demand. And for those of us men in the work, if you work with young people, you have, showing them that there's no expectation. I'm a healthy male, even if the girls, because sometimes the girls, right, because of their trauma, can say inappropriate things to males and coming out of the life, but you have to stand in your, sweetie, I don't want anything from you. I'm just here for you. Now, around prevention work in our groups, we suggest, and I heard we can't discriminate, so we suggest that men don't run the prevention groups, because I'm not going to talk about all the abuse that happened to me in the life when a man is in the room. I'm just not. Matter of fact, you might re-traumatize my ass, especially if you're a white male in the room. You might look like a trick that I had. You understand what I'm saying? And so around prevention, again, I can't say that, but if you're a man that's doing this work, then step back in that arena and allow the space that all girl space, right, around our groups, so that the girls and women can recover amongst themselves and feel safe and get the help that they need.
So thank you, Audrey, for that, because the chat is exploding now. It was well said. Thank you. Thank you for that. We are ready to sum it up. Ladies, we have about 1 minute. Speak to resiliency. What is one thing we can give our viewers so that they can help our girls to be resilient and heal? Jasmine, I see you, so I'm going to start with you.
Okay. I'm sorry. You were breaking up, Tawanda. I couldn't hear you.
I said, what's one thing, speak to resiliency, one thing we can say to our viewers that can help our girls heal?
One thing we can say to our viewers. Like I always say, invest in our communities, invest in our girls, right? It's not just, we have to go back to the mentality where it takes a village. And I think a lot of times we've moved away from that. But yes, invest in yourself, invest in your children, invest in your community, right? You will build resilience, and we want it to be generational. We don't want to just build it on one person, but we want it to be generational and be able to uphold the test of time, where, you help your child, you show them that they're beautiful, you show them that they're worth it, that they matter, right? That's why these summits are so important. You matter. And just continue to do that. And at the end of the day, even when you don't believe it, because sometimes with youth, they hear it and it's like they don't believe it because they're going through something, but you keep saying it. You just don't quit. So consistency would be my biggest what I want you to take away from this, be consistent with your message of you matter, you're something.
Right. Thank you for that. Audrey, one thing.
Training, 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 training.
All
And
right.
if you don't have any survivors on your team, hire some. And it is not volunteer work for them. The magic word is hire them.
Thank you for that. Awesome. Dr. Carson?
Mentorship.
All right, great. And then Jackie, one thing that speaks to resiliency, how we can help our young girls heal. Jackie, are you there? Okay, she seems to be frozen. All right, I am going to get ready to close out the panel. Maybe she'll come back before I do. But I want to say thank you to all of you amazing women for everything that you shared. You were truly, truly inspirational and empowering today. And we appreciate you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome. Just, oh, amazing. Thank you to Wanda
Thank
and
you.
Jasmine and Dr. Marlene and Audrey and Jackie. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and, you know, just setting the tone for us. So our next coming up is a break. And before we go into break, I wanted to just, you know, kind of rehash some of the things that have been said. And we know that, you know, having a mentor or someone to provide that support for us, as well as for our young people, is very important. Jasmine talked about, you know, the village and needing the village. And so, again, we want this summit to be very interactive. And so what I'm going to ask people to do, the participants, is in the chat, lift up somebody's name that has been that person for you, that support, that time when you were going through whatever you were going through, and you knew that if you reached out to them, they were the ones that were going to be the one to be there for you. Because that is the same example, same things that we need to be given, telling our girls to identify somebody such as that. So go ahead, lift up people in the chat.
And while the chat is going on too, Dr. Kathy, we actually lost Jackie in her one word for resiliency. So since we got her back, can we just have her say what that one word of resiliency is while the chat is filling that?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Wanda. So I did put it in the chat. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my internet today, but just that, you know, knowledge is power, and that's for everybody who works with youth and for our youth as well. So if you know, you'll definitely be more powerful.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So I see the names coming in, you know, and if we were in person, you know, if you all, those that have been regular attendees of our summit, we write people's names down, or we, you know, have some type of, you know, process to bring people into the space that have, you know, supported us, and just to give that acknowledgement and recognition, because without them, we wouldn't be where we are. We stand on so many people's shoulders, and so we definitely have to give homage. And I cannot, you know, keep talking. I have not brought her up yet, but the Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you so much for everything that she has done for women. And so, you know, we just, in the spirit of her, need to just make sure that we are advocating and fighting and uplifting, you know, women and girls, because if we don't do it, it won't get done. Right. And so in our spaces, in our professional spaces, in our personal spaces, we have to actually challenge ourselves and challenge people around us to really uplift, you know, women and girls, but specifically Black women and girls, because we know the disparities that exist amongst that population.